Surprise attack on Israel. We are joined by Victoria Coates, former Deputy National Security Advisor for the Middle East and Vice President of Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us with your insights as this is unfolding now for many, many hours. I want to get your thoughts on the sophistication, the scale of this, and how it was missed by Israel as well as the United States, which is a great partner, particularly when it comes to sharing intelligence. Your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Molly. And yeah, that's really the staggering thing is the scale and the sophistication of this attack, which could only be carried out if a terrorist group like Hamas, which is a non-state actor, has a nation state sponsor. And that sponsor is Iran. Absent Iran, there's no way they can pull this off. And so we know Iran is taking all of the money that's been flowing to it for the last 2.5 years with the permissive attitude toward its oil sales to communist China and pouring that into fueling an unprecedented terrorist operation against innocent Israeli civilians.
Victoria, it's Griff Jenkins. I have a question for you because now the world is wondering who is behind this and why now? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, thanks, Griff. It's very clearly, Iran. This is Tehran lashing out at Israel, but also with a very specific purpose and at a very precise time. 50 years after the Yom Kippur War, obviously, is a momentous anniversary, but also coming on the heels of the very open declarations by both Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel of how close they were getting to a truly historic peace deal to bring prosperity and security to their citizens. The Iranians hate that. That's a worst case scenario for them. So clearly they've been plotting this for some time, but when they saw an imminent deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel, they decided to pull the trigger.
Victoria, I think you're raising something I've been wondering about because of how big this is, how broad, how coordinated, the swath of land that they're covering, the land incursion as well as from the air, from the sea. How long has the planning gone on for? You're talking about some of these other elements, diplomacy that are happening around the world, and perhaps, this is a longtime enemy that's always plotting to some degree and has called for the end of Israel. But how are they able to do it at this moment, as you mentioned, when these historic deals were on the cusp?
I think it's because they've been fattened up with additional resources over the last couple of years. I remember in the spring of 2017, 2018 timeframe, visiting Gaza with your former colleague, Heather Nauert, when we were both in the Trump administration. And we went and saw all of the terrorist installations, the tunnels going into southern Israel from Gaza that were being uncovered and destroyed. And we had a real period of calm there for a while because Iran was being starved of resources. We had the maximum pressure campaign, the most significant economic sanctions in a generation, to keep the money out of the hands of Tehran, because when they get this money, Molly, all they do is spend it on terrorism. You can see an almost dollar-to-dollar equivalence. If you unfreeze funds, if you let them sell oil, they spend that money on violent mayhem in the region, and they spend that money on attacks on Israel.
Victoria, just in the last 30 seconds we've got left, let's talk about the escalation ladder and what we're going to see. Obviously, Netanyahu's primary triage at the moment is to take back those territories and towns from this ground invasion. But then he's promising an unprecedented price Hamas will pay. What does that look like?
Yeah, it has to be a full-out campaign against Hamas as if they were a state actor in this case. And it has to be a full-out campaign against this spreading Iranian influence. The White House, through its Office of Palestinian Affairs, their first response this morning was to call for restraint. That's the last thing the Israelis need to hear. They need to hear that the United States has Israel's back and will support in every way possible what they have to do to keep their country safe.
Great insight. Victoria Coates, thank you for taking time. Please come back to us if you have any more developments. We appreciate it.
Thank you.